they find a grease-covered antique oil lamp. Like all good mechanics, they wipe the grease off and poof, a genie appears in a puff of smoke. The genie says, okay, normally I do 3 wishes. There's 3 of you, so each get 1 wish. The specialist looks at the PFC and says, ladies first. So she says, great. I want to be out on the lake in the Ozarks with my husband, our 2 dogs, with a cabin, and a fishing boat. Poof, she's gone. The specialist says, you know, gee, that sounds great, but I want to be in Hawaii on the beach with my girlfriend, never-ending supply of drinks, and a luxury condo. Poof, he's gone. You're next, the genie says to the maintenance NCO. Anything you want. Sergeant First Class says, I want those soldiers back in the motor pool after lunch. We've got work to do. Is that how NCOs think? All right. Actually, lesson 1 I'm hoping you might remember from this talk today is that, you know, once you're out there in the Army, you're going to get this opportunity. You're going to have some time when you have to give a inspirational or thoughtful or motivational speech to some group. Normally, you're soldiers. Army and Army leaders have been around for thousands of years. You don't have to come up with something brand new every time. It's okay to use old, awe-inspiring thoughts. You can stand on the shoulders of leaders who have come before you. I hope every one of you does some professional reading. When you come across something really meaningful, take the time to write it down. Keep a notebook, keep an online journal, keep something with all these good ideas, and then when it comes time to do a talk, you use them. If you find a great situation you've just read Once an Eagle, or read a good quote in one of Patton's memoirs, or your CO makes a good point in a re-enlistment speech, save it. Write it down, copy, paste it, whatever you need to do, and at the appropriate time, use it. Takes a lot of stress off you, saves time, and you can really sound inspirational, like those 4-star Jones. To make my point, most of what I'm going to talk about today is from other sources. I certainly didn't write that joke about the genie. I'm going to read a letter from the Brigadier General. I'm going to tell you a story, true story from a second lieutenant, and a statement from the man who was the last surviving 5-star General of the Army. I think all these put together make a pretty good speech to, say, a group of young cadets who are about to become second lieutenants. So let's get to it. February 1942, Brigadier General Ralph Pennell, commander 27th Infantry Division, Fort Ord, California. He replied to a letter that he'd gotten from a U.S. Congressman, Clinton Anderson, who questioned why a certain constituent was assigned to the infantry instead of a position where his fine education could ostensibly be better utilized. General Pennell replied, your letter of February 17th to the Adjutant General concerning Private Robert Lister, Company A, 165th Infantry, has been sent to me. You state, I'm wondering if there's some mistake in his assignment to Fort Ord. Robert Lister has a fine education, has a master's degree, is ready for a doctor's degree, is an expert in Spanish, a skilled archaeologist, and has been an instructor at the University of New Mexico. So there's a little tie in here. Yeah, that's at that other New Mexico school up the road, but a little bit of New Mexico tie into this story. In this division of 22,000 men, I received many letters, similar to yours, from parents, relatives, friends, sweethearts. They do not understand why the men who had a good law practice at home cannot be in the Judge Advocate General's department. Why the drugstore manager cannot work in the post hospital. Why the school teacher cannot be used for training and education. They're willing for somebody else to do the hard, dirty work of the fighting man, so long as the one they're interested in can be spared from that hard duty. If the doctors in the future are to have the privilege of practicing their profession, if archaeologists are to investigate antiquity, if the students are to have the privilege of taking degrees and the professors the privilege of teaching them, somebody must march and fight and bleed and die, and I know no reason why the students and the doctors and the professors and the archaeologists shouldn't do their share of it. You say, it strikes me as too bad to take that kind of education and bury it in a rifle squad, as if there was something mean or low or servile about being in a rifle squad. And only morons and ditch diggers should be given such duty. I know of no place red-blooded men of intelligence and initiative are more needed than in the Rifle and Weapons Squad. In this capacity, we'll give full recognition to the placing of men so that they need to do the work most beneficial to the unit of which they're a part. So we're going to put them where the Army needs them. Whenever men are needed for a particular duty, we'll consider their record and their required skills and qualifications. I've examined the records of Private Lister. It's fairly complete. Holds the 100-yard dash and broad jump in the border conference. He was president of his fraternity. His mother was born in Alabama, father in Michigan. I suspect it was his father that asked you to do what you could do to get his son on other duty. It's desirable that all men, regardless of their specialty, should learn by doing how hard it is to march with a pack for 20 miles. You ever done that? How to hold the bayonet in combat. And how to respect the man who really takes it, namely the Rifle and Private Squad. So lesson here today. It's the Rifle Squad, it's the infantry, it's the combat arms that take ground, and everything else, whether it be MPs, MI, Medical Service Corps, all your branches. Remember, that's there to support the guys who are really taking it in combat, the ones who hold ground, the ones who win wars, combat arms. Now, you can't keep a good man down in the Army for long. Every commander is anxious to get a hold of men with initiative, intelligence, and drive. If Private Lister has special qualifications for intelligence duty, he'll be considered when a vacancy occurs. Now, you may think that I'm a good distance from the Rifle Squad here. I'd like to tell you, I have a son on the Bataan Peninsula. All I know of him is that he was wounded on January 19th. I hope he's back by now where the Rifle Squads are taking it, and I wish I were there beside him. I've written you this long letter because in your high position, that you exercise a large influence on what people think and the way they regard the Army. It is necessary for them to understand men must do which best helps to win the war. The needs of the Army come first. And often that is not the same as what they do best. Sincerely yours, Ralph Bunnell, Brigadier General Commanding. Now I did some research on my own, and I found out that Robert Lister did become a well-known archaeologist who actually did quite a bit of work, archaeology work here in New Mexico, so that time is good. And General Pinnell's son survived the Bataan Death March. Something else you guys have heard of, maybe once or twice? Our lessons. Rifle squads win wars. Everything else is to support them. If you're going to enjoy the benefits of freedom, it's only fair that we all do the doing. So, there's going to be times out there in the Army where you're going to be doing some doing. And you can't keep a good man down. Do your job, what the Army needs, and somebody will notice and give you the opportunity to use your best skills. Okay. Said I had a story from a second lieutenant here. This is another good one. And it's from an Air Force lieutenant, but I think you'll see that it's pretty rough. The first time the Air Force sent me on temporary duty by myself, I experienced probably the most embarrassing moment of my life, which I tell here in hopes that other butter bars out there won't make the same mistake. I was traveling from Wright-Patterson Air Force Base to Vandenberg, California, and the flight scheduled me for a 2-hour layover in the St. Louis airport. I decided to hit the snack bar, bought a cup of coffee, a package of Oreos, and a newspaper. After giving the cashier $9 or so that these items cost, I scanned the crowd for a place to relax. The lounge was crowded, but there appeared to be a spot over there, maybe across from a fellow in another military uniform of some sort. Great, I thought, another soldier. Maybe he can tell me about life in the forces. With my coffee on the right side of the table, my newspaper on the left, and my Oreos in the center, I sat down, and I took the first close look at the man opposite me. He was a Marine Corps Brigadier General. No hair, an honest-to-God scar on his forehead, and about 6 rows of ribbons, including a silver star, with a cluster. To me, the general had horns, fangs, a pitchfork, and long pointed tail as well. I was committed to using the table, but not wanting to bother the general, I kind of squeaked out, "Good morning, sir," before sitting down. I'd begun the paper's crossword puzzle and was making good progress when I heard a peculiar sound, much like the crinkling of cellophane. I looked out of the corner of my eye to discover the general had reached across the center of the table, opened the package of Oreos, taken one out, and was eating it. Now, not having attended the Air Force Academy, I was not familiar with the finer points of military etiquette, such as what to do when a senior member of another service calmly rips off one of your cookies. Several responses came to mind, but none seemed entirely appropriate. I realized that the honor of the Air Force was in a small way at stake here. I couldn't let the general think I was a complete weenie. Besides, at airport prices, one Oreo is a significant fraction of the take-home pay of a second lieutenant. The only response I could make was to reach across the center of the table, open the other end of the package, try not to notice that the other end had mysteriously come open somehow, extract an Oreo, and eat it very, very thoroughly. There, I thought. I've subtly shown the general that these are my Oreos and he should go by his own. Now, Marines are known for many qualities, but subtlety is not one of them. The general calmly reached out for another Oreo and ate it. By the way, the general was licking the middles out before he ate the cookies. Not having said anything the first time, of course, I couldn't bring it up now. The only thing to do was to take another cookie for myself. We wound up alternating through the entire package. For an instant, our eyes met, and there was palpable tension in the air, but neither of us said a word. After I finished the last Oreo, they announced something over the public address system. The general got up, put his papers back into his briefcase, picked up the now empty wrapper, threw it away, brushed a few crumbs neatly off the table, and left. I sat there marveling at his gall and feeling pretty foolish. A few minutes later, they announced my flight. You know, I felt a good deal more foolish when I finished my coffee, threw the cup away, and lifted my newspaper to reveal my Oreos. Okay, today 2 of us are running around the armed forces telling the same story, but only one of us has the punchline. And in general, if you're reading this, get in touch with me and I'll be glad to send you a case of Oreos. I don't know if there's a lesson there about really dealing with the other services or not, but lesson for Lieutenant anyway. And I said I would close with a short quote from the last living 5-star general of the Army. Anybody know who that was? The last living 5-star? Guy named Omar Bradley. He was at my commissioning and my graduation, and he died less than a year later, in 1981. He said, "The American soldier is a proud one, and he demands professional competence in his leaders. In battle, he must know that the job is going to be done right with no unnecessary casualties. The NCO wearing the chevron is supposed to be the best soldier in the platoon, and he's supposed to know how to perform all the duties expected of him. The American soldier expects his sergeant to be able to teach him how to do his job, and he expects even more from his officers." General Omar Bradley. So there we go. Four pieces from 4 different quotes, all stolen. A little bit of introductory stuff in between. Did it work? Did I do a speech? All right. Thank you very much, Stan. Thank you. Good luck.